Our next segment is on Skype. His name is Greg Palast. He is investigative journalist at Salon.com. Hi, Greg.
Hey, how you doing?
So, Greg, you've done a lot of work on voter fraud, especially in Georgia. How do you feel that the recent midterms were impacted by voter fraud?
They stole the election. Brian Kemp removed 340,134 people, mostly African Americans, from the voter rolls. I've been working on this for 20 years for BBC, for Rolling Stone, and now for Salon. I had to sue Brian Kemp. Now, Brian Kemp was the Republican Secretary of State. He ran the election as Secretary of State, and he was the guy running for governor. He eliminated, are you ready, 500,000 people from the voter rolls in the year before the election. And we know for sure that, again, 340,134, you can look up at gregpalast.com, their names and their addresses. Everyone that was removed because they supposedly left the state of Georgia or their home county, and they're still there. We have the experts that work with Amazon and American Express who make sure that your bills go to the right place and your toaster goes to the right place. And they told us with 100% accuracy, those people are still there, including, by the way, Christine Jordan, the 92-year-old cousin of Martin Luther King, who showed up at the polls and they wouldn't let her vote. That's the game that is being played by the
Wait, but Greg, hang on a second. People who do show up are able to vote, and then it's provisional. So what about that? I think that you gotta be honest here when you're talking about people showing up at the polls.
No, you're accusing me of being dishonest. Don't even try that. Now, here's the deal. Number one, Brian Kemp said that if people are not on the voter rolls, don't give them provisional ballots. We have the names and addresses of hundreds. I was there in a polling station when one young voter who was removed from the voter rolls, she's asked for a provisional ballot. I said it's required under federal law. They said you don't get a ballot if your name is not on the voter rolls. That's from Brian Kemp's office. And that's one of the reasons why there are lawsuits by Common Cause, by the ACLU and others to challenge this election and challenge the way Georgia counts votes. It's an ugly Jim Crow system. And also, provisional ballots are back of the bus ballots. Most of the time, they don't get counted. 2.7 million people cast provisional ballots, which were rejected in 2016, and that's according to the Trump administration's Elections Assistance Commission. There you go.
So what? I think across the board. No, excuse me. Well, I wanted John to get a chance, but we can go back and forth.
I think one of the interesting points you've made here is that's often overlooked is that, yes, Kemp was the Secretary of State for Georgia and was in charge of the election and was also able to run in the election. Is there any discussion about perhaps putting some laws on the books that might prevent conflicts of interest like this?
Well, I think the most important thing is to let Americans vote. We're playing games with this business of purging voters. I have sued now, when I was with Rolling Stone, now at Salon, 26 states to get the names of all the purged voters. And we are finding hundreds of thousands of voters in Illinois and Indiana, Mississippi, Georgia, several states that were removed from the voter rolls who, in fact, should be there. I mean, they didn't die. They didn't move. They're removed basically because they committed the crime of voting while black. This is how George W. Bush got elected president. I started this for BBC and back in 2000, BBC television out of Britain. Catherine Harris removed 56,000 people, mostly black men, from the voter rolls, saying that they were felons, not allowed to vote. It's not true. Not a single one was a felon. Their crime was voting while black. If we don't allow people to vote, we can say, okay, Brian Kemp can't run the election and run for governor at the same time, but that's not going to stop the game.
In North Carolina, the changes on removing people is based on whether they were active, whether the registration was active, whether they were actually voting. I mean, voting is a responsibility, and if you don't take the time to update the state with your information, that's not fulfilling your responsibility.
We pretend to be a democracy, not a mockery of democracy. There's no games. What is this active, inactive stuff? Just so you know the details, as long as you're bringing up such a thing, this inactive stuff says if you don't vote, you lose your vote. That is, by the way, unconstitutional. It violates the National Voter Registration Act, which says in black letters, here's a quote, no elector, that means a voter, no elector may lose their vote for a failure to vote in an election. That's the national law. The only reason you can use not voting as a way to remove someone is if that's evidence that they have moved. Christine Jordan, 92-year-old cousin of Martin Luther King, didn't move anywhere. She's been in that same house for half a century, and she lost her vote along with 340,134 other Georgians. Brian Kemp is an illegitimate governor, and we have several others in America, several politicians, including and I'm going to tell you, Donald Trump, who are not elected, but selected because hundreds of thousands of voters in key states like Ohio and Michigan were blocked from voting. That's the truth. Go to gregpalast.com or read my stories in Salon or Rolling Stone. And I haven't seen a refutation yet. And the judges, by the way, in courts are agreeing with me 100%.
All right, Greg, we're going to leave it right there. Thanks for joining us.